Yo, what's good, everyone? This is another episode of Mad Mondays. I want to shout out everybody who's been watching the series so far. Every single week, every single Monday, dropping a new banger video where I'm answering 7 questions to give you guys a better detailed insight into my life, who I am as a person, whether that's Nomad222 or that's Damon Padaha, the father of 4, content creator, music creator, all around great guy and dude and person. And once again, thank you guys for watching and tuning in today. If you guys are just joining the channel, I'm Nomad222. You can go back and watch episode 1 if you need more insight into what this series is about, and then just find your way back here, and we'll meet you guys back here when you get back. So today's episode, number 14, is about the role of hip-hop in my life. And as per usual, I got 7 questions here. And the first question is, how did you first get introduced to hip-hop and what drew you to it? I want to say that my first introduction to hip-hop, or at least the one that comes to mind straight away as being the first time that I was really impacted to it, was Lauryn Hill. Maybe. I've talked about Lauryn Hill in the past as, you know, one of the early figures of hip hop that I really listened to, and even just R&B in general. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, I believe, came out when I was a child or just before. So I was born in 97. I think it came out in like 99 or something. But the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, just listening to doo-wop, that thing, and to Zion and all of that, it immediately like hooked me. Like, doo-wop is such a crazy song, even just on the production alone. But then you take into the account the lyricism that Lauren is presenting in the verses, on top of the melodies and harmonies that she's laying over the hook. It's just an insane song. So that's what drew me to it. Like, that creativity and that what I could hear sonically, it was just beautiful. And then you break down the bars, like, over time as I grow older and I start to understand that lyrics have a meaning and words have a meaning, and I start to break down exactly what that song is about and how powerful that is as I guess a mantra or a philosophy when it comes to relationships or just being a woman or even a man in general. Like, it's a very important aspect of hip-hop that I feel is a little bit overlooked now, but for me it has always resonated. I've always wanted to dig a little bit deeper into what a song means, and even just across all genres, I'm very interested in what is the story that they're trying to present, what is the topic that they're trying to dive into. And hip-hop, I feel like, is one where you can really sink your teeth into some of these messages. And it's also where I believe a lot of the literary devices that we learn in English class and writing class and things like that are really present, the most present, because not only do you have a topic and you're trying to tell a story from a perspective, but there's also opportunity there to have multi-syllabic rhyme schemes. There's also an opportunity for you to play with cadence and tone, which I guess isn't necessarily a writing technique, but still, literary devices like metaphors, similes, punchlines, and all of that sort of stuff are things that really, you know, it does something to my brain. It you know, induces endorphins, if that's the right way to put it. But that's how I feel about that. So question number 2 is, what aspects of hip-hop culture resonate most with you? I feel like I already went into that. You know, the aspects of hip-hop culture that stick out to me, that resonate most with me, other than, like, you know, the use of literary devices and just how creative, how exceptionally creative you can get with hip-hop and songwriting and things like that. I think the other things, you know, I'm a 90s kid, a late 90s kid, but still 90s kid. I grew up, you know, Tupac and Biggie had just passed, but their impact was felt for majority of my childhood, everyone that I knew. So that culture of, like, West Coast, East Coast was a real thing for me growing up, especially as kids, like, who just are kind of ignorant to the actual impact and not really sympathetic to the fact that people really died over that shit. It just seemed cool to me and my peers as children back in the day. Like, we all wanted to be 50 Cent. 50 Cent had a huge impact on kids in my school. Eminem had a huge impact in my school. Pretty much anyone that collaborated with Dr. Dre had an impact at my school. And so that thought of gangster rap. But on the flip side, you know, as I matured and I grew older, it still had an impact on me, but just in the opposite way, where I realized that, like, even though that stuff was cool to me and that was stuff that I grew up with and respect heavily, I knew that I am the complete opposite of that. So it gave me kind of a mirror to look at myself through, and a lens where I can go, I have nothing to do with the culture that's going on over there. But just like they were able to take this music device and craft their stories into songs, I can do the exact same things with my own experiences. And that's how I'm going to be able to enter this and view this new creative outlet through. So I think that kind of answers that second question. How has hip hop influenced your musical style and creative expression? Okay, I've answered that question. That question right there. Hip hop has influenced my musical style in many different ways. So just as I just finished talking about, you know, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and Tupac, Biggie, 50 Cent, Eminem, who else? The Game, all of those guys that can be considered like gangster rap, hip hop, whether that's West Coast or East Coast. There was also, you know, in the middle of my young childhood, my early childhood, adolescent years, was the emergence of newer artists like Kanye West, Drake, J. Cole, you know, artists that weren't necessarily involved in street and gang life, but were able to craft their own stories and tell their truth through hip hop music. And also, you know, J. Cole in particular was able to craft stories based on what he was seeing around him and be that juxtaposition to the gangster culture that we grew up with. So yeah, that's definitely how it influenced me there. Like, I got to see both sides of the coin, and then off of that, understand that there is a variety here. There's enough room for all of these stories to coexist. It doesn't all have to be the one same thing. Hip hop isn't a narrow pathway. It's nuanced, and it's a spectrum of different experiences. It's a spectrum of different lived experiences. So that's how it's influenced my musical style and my creative expression, is that I feel like my creative expression is only limited to my imagination. My musical style is only limited to my taste, and my taste is ever evolving, ever expanding, and constantly being reinvented. Every single day I crave a new thing. I don't necessarily stick to, you know, the West Coast hyphy beats that sometimes I'm interested in, and sometimes I want to dabble in some of the styles that, you know, my drill contemporaries are taking part in. I want to get some Latin beats, but I also want to do some boom bap stuff. I want to do some, you know, New York inspired stuff. I want to do some Atlanta inspired stuff. I want to do some NZ inspired stuff, and it's always changing. And that's the way that, you know, hip hop over time has shaped and influenced my perspective on hip hop. How can you share a pivotal moment in your life related to hip hop? Yes, I've spoken about this a lot recently, and it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of symbolic that this is episode 14. 2014, Forest Hills Drive. 2014, Forest Hills Drive dropped in 2014 when I was 17. But that album in particular shaped a lot of what my view of hip hop is, or what hip hop should be. It's the most influential album that I've ever listened to. And in fact, you know, we just finished celebrating 10 years of 2014 Forest Hills Drive at the end of 2024. It's 2025 now, but I had to go ahead and cop both of these So this is the 10th anniversary edition of 2014 Forest Hills Drive, and this is the alternate cover of 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Each of them have 5 new singles on them. At the time of purchasing these, none of those 10 singles were on all platforms, but then they eventually released all of them. So that was I'm a little bit cut about that. Cole, what are you doing? Ebe, Dreamville, what are you guys doing? But I copped those because that is the #1 most integral, influential album of my life. A lot of the storytelling and the directions that Cole chose to go down, whether that's talking about, O3 Adolescence, when he's talking about how he's got this one friend who's in the street life, who's dealing, and he wanted to get into that. That was something that I personally can relate to. I knew a lot of people that were, selling weed while I was in my late years of high school, and I just wanted money, man. I just wanted some money so that I could be able to pay for things and not have to worry about the burden of, finances and things like that. But I wasn't about that. I wasn't about that life. I didn't grow up in that life. I didn't grow up around weed. I definitely knew what it was, but it's not something that was like hyper prevalent in my life. So stories like that I could relate to. Wet dreams I could definitely relate to. That act of, claiming that you're about it and that you've been there before, but you've never actually, you're still a virgin. You don't actually know what you're talking about. You're just playing pretend. Different things on that album. Love Yours, like I could go down the list, but that was a pivotal moment where if I didn't listen to that, I probably wouldn't have the mind to find unique stories in my own life to write about and put into songs as I do right now. So if that album never came out and I never listened to it, I probably, wouldn't think to make a song like The News. Even though that was also like inspired by Joyner Lucas. Cole was definitely, and this album was definitely the most integral part to how I craft my own songs. So yeah, shout out to J. Cole, man. Question number 5 is, what do you believe hip hop represents in today's society? Yeah, that's tough. I think hip hop has gone pop. It's been pop for a long time. It's been one of the most popular genres in a very long time. But I feel like, more importantly, hip hop doesn't signify for the masses what it has signified for me all my life. And that's, it's a form of expression where you can really be open and honest about yourself, and you can talk, you can speak from the heart, and you use hip hop and you use rap as a way to express your message. I feel like the message has been lost for a very long time. I feel like hip hop represents something quite toxic, something quite negative, something quite dangerous in certain spaces. I know that the positivity in hip hop still exists. I know that as long as there's people like La Russell and D1, Rhapsody, maybe even Doechii to an extent, because like she can get some, like, overall, I love Doechii. I think Doechii is doing some amazing stuff, but she can also like err on the side of toxicity too, which is a necessity. We as humans, we are nothing except hypocrites. There's a dichotomy in being a human. You kind of need both chaos and peace to coexist within yourself. So I'm not knocking like people that do that, but I do feel like the scales have kind of tipped to the side of like, let's just talk about bitches and hoes and drugs and lean and ecstasy and sex and violence and all of that stuff, gunplay, stabbing and all of that. Let's just keep that at the forefront of what hip hop is, so that people discredit people who are trying to spread positivity and love. I mean, look at what they did to Chance the Rapper. This man made a million songs about loving his wife, and the internet mocked him for it. I love my wife. Like, that just doesn't seem fair to me. The fact that this man is trying to make music about having a healthy relationship with his wife. And ultimately, I feel like the way that the internet clowned him is partly the reason why they got divorced in the last place. Not to mention the fact that he kind of also presented himself as this messiah, holier than thou figure on his high horse and that sort of shit. But Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point that I'm trying to make is that I feel like the scales have tipped to the negative side more than the positive side. And we need more people to not only create more positive music, but we need the people in general to crave and desire more positivity for themselves so that they're not constantly going towards this thing. You know, they're not constantly going towards this side where a future can exist and, you know, just spread this message of like, fuck every woman and women are less. And like, that's all the future is about. Honestly, like anyone that knows me, I'm very vocal about it. Fuck Future, fuck Rick Ross, all those people that make that kind of music. I don't fuck with you. Nor do you fuck with me. Humble me if you want. But anyway, that's what I believe hip-hop represents in today's society. But in saying that, it also represents hope and opportunity, because there's opportunity for us to bring more hope to the game. So I'll leave that at that. Question number 6, how do you use hip-hop as a platform for your message? Just being authentic, just writing songs from the heart. Anything that I lived through, if I can find a bar in there, I'm going to put it into a song. And that's why I've got songs like Be Like That, The News, For You, Hustle On, Testing. That's why I got songs like Proud of Me, where I'm talking to my parents. That's why I got songs like Switch Up, where I'm just ranting over a song for half a song and then, you know, ending it on a positive note. There's a song which I don't believe is going to be out by the time you see this, but there's a song that I got coming out called Faucet. I've shown it to a few different people. I've shown it to T. She said that this one really hits. I've shown it like hits home in terms of like how in the feels it gets you. I've also shown like Vina, and she told me that this is one of them ones, like meaning, you know, this is a song that's really gonna make people feel something, and hopefully it does. But the reason why I've got songs like that is because I use hip-hop as a vehicle to get me from point A to point B, because I use it as a vessel for me to spread my testament, you know, my testimony. I have a faith that I don't believe is unique, but there's a level of faith that I have in my creator, in the universe, that I'm here for a purpose that is kind of unwavering. I've had my faith shaken at times, yes, but for the most part, like any time where those thoughts of, you know, wanting to unalive myself, for example, have creeped in, I have been able to pull myself out of there just off of faith alone. Faith that I'm supposed to be doing something greater than what I'm doing right now. And who would I be to take that away from the universe? Who would I be to, you know, deny the creator of what they blessed me with? So anyway, that's ultimately how I will answer that question, number 6. Question number 7, the last question: what legacy do you hope to leave within the hip-hop community? I've spoken about legacy for a very long time, and that feeling of, you know, maybe the success that I desire isn't something that I see in my lifetime, but it's potentially something that lives on past my expiration date. And that's just, you know, the fact that I never gave up on what it was that I want to do. And this is going to sound corny to some of you who, you know, have a certain stigma around, you know, I'm going to get into WWE. One of my biggest influences, you're probably going to look at my skin color and say The Rock, but one of my biggest influences growing up was John Cena. And John Cena is someone who preached never give up. On top of hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up was another one of those things that he constantly preached. And if you go back and you watch this man's career, this is someone who started in developmental. He was going by the prototype, but then when he made the main roster, he didn't really have a real what do you call it? He didn't really have a real niche about him, or whatever you call it. His act wasn't together. He was just this generic white dude who came out and beat Kurt Angle one time, and then every single week after that, every show, he was just showing up with the color of the sports team. His shorts were the color of the sports team of the city that they were in. So if he was in New York, he would wear shorts that matched the color of the Knicks. If he was in Atlanta, he wore shorts that matched the color of the Atlanta Hawks or whatever, so on and so forth. But there was a point in time where he was about to be fired. He kind of accepted his fate. surrendered to the universe. Whatever happens, happens. But he was at the back of the bus when they were going up to one of their next shows, and people were in the back rapping, just freestyle rapping. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. And he started freestyle rapping. He killed everyone in the back seat. Stephanie McMahon overheard him, and she was like, hey, look, why don't you try and do that on TV? And rather than, you know, be ashamed of it and be like, I don't know, he took that as like, this is my final chance. If this is the way that I go out, I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm going to go out and tell myself that I gave it 110%. Everything that I could have done, I did it. And this is just the way that the cookie crumbled. Now we know John Cena to be arguably the greatest of all time when it comes to that industry. He is arguably the person that, you know, Super Cena. He's a polarizing figure where the crowd is either like, let's go Cena, or the other side is like, Cena sucks. It's a complete chant. But that is one of the biggest role models that I had looking up, and that sort of influence of never give up, hustle, loyalty, respect are things that I carry with me to this day. And it's a huge reason why I preach positivity, because, you know, I mean, we all kind of know Doctor of Thugonomics era John Cena. He was a little bit ruthless. I mean, he came into the game spouting ruthless aggression as his shtick, but somewhere into the PG era, he transitioned into this positive, never give up figure that we know to this day. He's the record holder for the most completed Make-A-Wish wishes for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, or whatever that term is. But he's done the most out of any celebrity in the entire world ever, and he's still completing more and more to this day. But I say all of that to say that is the kind of legacy that I hope to leave. Like, that man is at the end of his career. I feel like I'm at the very beginning. But I want to leave this community, I want to leave hip-hop in a better state than what I found it in. And I mean, that's not to say that I found it at a negative state, but like I said, the scales are tipped right now. The scales are pointing in the direction of negative influences for our next generation, for our current generation, just to be negative about life in general. And I want to leave hip-hop in a state of optimism, looking forward to the future, just being good people, morally, ethically. That's how I view hip-hop, and that's what I want hip-hop to become. I want there to be more space for artists that tell stories. I want there to be less of an onus on first week sales and statistics and metrics and things like that. I know that's ironic, because I've got a whole series dedicated to tracking my statistics and metrics and everything like that, but I just don't want it to have such a negative effect on people's mental, right? I don't want that to dictate whether or not people feel like they can keep making music even just for themselves. Like, I started out just writing rhymes because it was something fun to do. But somewhere down the line, music became something that you only mess around with if you think you can make money from it, or you can monetize. And that's not what music is at all. Music is a form of expression, and people need to be able to express themselves completely, uncensored. Whether that is, you know, sometimes negative, but let's balance out the chaos with the peace. And anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I feel like I rambled. Hopefully there's something cohesive. There's a theme in there somewhere. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Comment below if you can find the common theme throughout the thread that ties all of that messaging together. But once again, I really do appreciate everybody that's supporting and following the channel. One more time, I don't think I've said it in this video, but I want to shout out Nine-Side Co for the cap, the t-shirt. Shout out to my bro Young M.A.D, who started Nine-Side Co, and we're doing big things. We're going to the moon, representing the West, representing the 9. For those of you who don't know, the west side of Melbourne. And again, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we're trying to get a golden play button. And yeah, much love to everyone that's watching. Don't forget, together we move.